or what a super sunset this is. This is Misson Carr. I'm just heading back towards the car to start and get things ready for an evening's moth trapping at this Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust Reserve. But I've had a little bit of a wander. Willow warbler has been singing, chiff-chaffs of course. It's just a beautiful early April evening, and hopefully we'll get a few moths. They seem to be thin on the ground again this year. Back at one of my favourite places today, and it's one of my favourite places because of this. Beautifully quiet with just bird song, and bird song from arriving warblers. Of course we have the obligatory chiff-chaff, but there's a black cap sort of tacking away down in the shrubs here. Willow warblers further down at the bottom end. And a beautiful day it's been too. 23 degrees centigrade on the way here in the car. And the clear sky means that the temperature will drop, but while ever I'm here, it's forecasted to remain in double figures. Hopefully we should have a decent night and do better than many other moth trappers locally who have had poor counts. Well, we're off and running here at Misson Carr on the 8th of April. I can't remember the date that I came here last April, but I ended up with a decent list of species, and I'm hopeful of a similar decent list this evening. As I mentioned, people are struggling to get decent counts or even numbers of moths at traps, even out in rural areas and woodland. So let's hope they come in here at Misson Carr. Well, of all the moths that I've showed first on any of my moth trapping videos, which number over 100 now, I do video and film every trapping session I do, I don't think any can beat this. This is a streamer, and of those geometry moths or carpets that fly early in the year, this one takes some beating, I must admit. It's beautifully and delicately marked, characteristically marked too. The wings are all a grey ground colour, but there is a suffusion of almost purple like on the forewings if you catch a specimen that is particularly fresh, and this one seems to be particularly fresh. Usually do quite well at Misson Carr for streamer, and as I mentioned, it's an absolute beauty to be talking about. So hopefully this is the first of many moths this evening, but it appears quite quiet. Well, here's another corker of a moth, And this, of course, is a purple thorn, which is quickly coming after that streamer that we saw a few minutes ago. Well, what a beautiful moth this is. We're starting to get some more colourful moths as we move further into the spring, and purple thorn is one such species. It might not look to be purple here, but the darker brown areas of the forewings, and especially on the underside, do have elements of a purple sheen to them in certain lights. It's a beautiful species, it really is, and typical of many thorns. They rest with the wings held at about 45 degrees. Thorns, or most thorns, are relatively easy to identify, and this time of year in spring we've only got the two that are in flight at the moment. This one, purple thorn, and early thorn. Early thorn usually comes out a week or so earlier than this very beautiful moth. Well, here's another new moth for the year. This is a least black archers. It's unusual to see it like this because they normally rest head downwards, so this moth isn't completely at rest, but they always rest. They can be found on tree trunks during the day, but they will be facing downwards and the wings held a little bit more in a tighter sort of triangular fashion. But what a delightful little moth, silvery white background colour and some greyish blackish markings. It's a lovely little thing, a moth that's doing very well actually, at least here in Nottinghamshire. So that's least black archers. The season of new moths is upon us, but as can be quite typical of April, and indeed in May you get more species but often fewer moths until we get into late May. But here's a nice one for this evening. Nice to see this species. So that's least black archers, and a few moths starting to come in. Moth in a pot time, but nothing too rare. But this is a white pinion spotted, and I'm going to put photos in because these rarely ever settle down on the sheet. I might give it a go, and if it does settle down and I can film it, then I will do. But a very attractive pure white moth with a couple of blackish marks along the leading edge of the wings. It's not a moth that I catch a lot of, to be honest, but it turns up here this time of the year. So that's white pinion spotted, which is another new moth for the year. I'll take it out of the pot and we'll see what it does. We may be in luck. It's sat on the gate at the moment, but once it's sorted itself out, it may well up and off like they so often do. Well, it's not very often that chestnut makes the list in 14th place. It's the last species which has just come in, and in this last couple of minutes the quakers have started to arrive. It tends to be after about an hour or so, once they've had a bit of a feed and a fly around looking for females, etc., and pairing up, and then they start to come into light. So that first hour can be how it's been here, very quiet, few moths are flying around, but once the quakers get going and the cloud of drabs and the like, activity tends to increase. That's what I've always found, and there's several common quakers now on the sheet, and I think we're up to about 3 or 4 lunar marbled browns, but things are looking up. Well, here's a very nice thing. It may only be different shades of browns with various markings, but the markings are intricate and beautiful on this pale prominent. If you're wondering, the head end is to the left, and this species has extremes in the form of palps. The two projections that you can see coming from the head of the moth are in fact enlarged palps, quite characteristic of this species, and there's almost that shark fin like plume on the thorax that you can see. Very, very attractive moths. They can be quite variable, but all variations on this, and it's a common species occurring in spring. You will get it in your gardens, and it's a very nice moth too. So another new species for the year in the form of this pale prominent. Well, we're going along very nicely, and just had first migrant moth of the year, and I thought that I'd seen one of these a little bit earlier ago, and it's a diamondback moth, which is one of the common micros. It's probably one of the commonest migrant moths that we get in the UK. So very nice to see. I do love me a migrant moth. And another moth which has come in, and I wasn't expecting, is V-pug. And if it settles down, I will get some footage of it, but otherwise you'll be looking at a much better photograph than the footage that I will show you. And coupled with increasing numbers now steadily of common Quakers, and there's a few more Hebrew characters also coming in, it's turning into a really nice little session, this. Well, we're in luck with our white pinion spotted. It's settled down. I didn't think it would, because they often don't. And you don't get a bad neck looking at this, because this one is facing upside down, but you can see it's a beautiful almost silvery white colour. Some very, very delicate darker markings, but on the leading edges of the forewings there's two sort of dark brown to black triangles. Easy to identify, will occur in suburban gardens, but what a lovely moth. It's so nice to have some different moths to show you, even though you get the same moths pretty much every year at the same time. It's still nice to finally see something different after the moths of early spring. And this is an absolute beauty. Oh, we're into a third hour. The first hour was generally quiet, and things have picked up since the start of the second hour. And now I'm at the point where I'm debating how long I'm going to stop. 12 centigrade is the temperature. It feels a little bit cooler than that, but there again, I've only got a t-shirt on. I do have warmer clothing in the car. Something's thinking of dropping in. Well, that's something that was dropping in. It's turned out to be the dark form of water carpet, and had me going at first, but that's what it is, dark form. It's not very often I trap these or see these. This might only be the second or third. So I will be photographing this in the morning, and then we'll be bringing it back. But nice to see this dropping. That's 3 water carpets for this evening now. And if I just go through and put photos in of the last new species that have come in. Clouded drab. I won't bother putting a photo in the clouded drab because you have seen enough of those. Early thorn has eventually come in. Double striped pug is new for the year, and that's the one that you'll be looking at a photograph of at the moment. Nice to see double striped pug. It can be very, very nicely marked. Early tooth stripe is another species which don't see very often. I think the last one was here, and so that's going to go and have its photograph taken too, and will be up on the website sometime in the next few days. So that's nice to see. And oak tree pug is new for the year. I've had 2 in, and one is quite well marked, but they are very fresh, and they're a pug that will, well, throughout the rest of April will probably dominate many catches in terms of pugs. And there's been a second V pug in, and hopefully you will be looking at a decent enough photo of a V pug. They won't settle down too much on the sheet for me to film, and it's easier if I just put photographs in of some things. And yeah, 2 chestnuts now. So it's been a nice little evening as this. I still think something could drop in, something that I'm not expecting or wasn't expecting. You never know, but how long I stay for, I don't know. I am behind the gates, so it's a bit more of a palaver to pack up and get sorted for going home. So I may just give it another half an hour or so, and we'll see what comes in. And here's another little beauty and a new species for the year. This is a Chinese character. There aren't many moths that assume this resting posture, and I didn't see it come in, actually, to be honest. What a beautifully marked moth it is. Can be quite bird dropping like, but it's those white veins in the middle of the forewings which I think is how the moth gets its name. Apparently it must look like a Chinese character. Either way, it's an absolute little beauty and will occur in 2 broods. It's common enough, you'll get this at home, and it's a lovely species. It's one I'd forgotten about, actually, and yet I should have expected it, because it will turn up at this time of year. A little beauty indeed, the diminutive Chinese character. Well, it's 11:15, and so I've had a good 2.5 hours, and I'm happy with that 2.5 hours. I've had a really nice session, very enjoyable, nice temperatures, but the temperatures are starting to drop a little bit now, and it does start to feel a little bit cold. And so I'm going to have a steady pack up. There's 2 new species for the year that I can tell you about that have come in the last 10 minutes or so. Scalloped hooktip, which is a beautiful moth and has beautifully scalloped edges to the wings too, hence the name. And the other moth which has just come in is a pebble prominent. But one of the highlights of this evening's session is the 5 or 6 purple thorns that I've had come to the light. As I sit here now, I can see 4 very easily, and I know that there's another couple knocking around on the back of the sheet. I can't remember having that number of purple thorns in before, and there was one brief early thorn which didn't stop to be filmed or even counted, barely. So a good session, 23, 24 species of moths, some that I didn't expect and some that I haven't seen for quite a while. So a steady pack up it is.